The wedding photo that destroyed my mother-in-law. She said. Your grandmother was a whore who died alone. About my beloved Nana. I said nothing. Then I showed everyone the wedding photo she'd hidden for 30 years. The family imploded in 48 hours. I, 31 female, am sitting in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house. It's eerily quiet. No more Sunday dinners, no more family group chats buzzing with updates, no more holiday planning committees. It's all gone. And it's my doing. My mother-in-law Patricia is what you'd call old-school Southern charm. You know the type. Perfectly coiffed silver hair, pearls at every occasion, endless volunteering at the church, and a smile that could cut glass when she disapproves of something. She's been the undisputed matriarch of the Morrison family for decades. Everyone bends to her will, including my husband Jake. My grandmother Nana, 89, was my everything. She raised me after my parents' messy divorce when I was 7. Nana was a free spirit in the 1950s. A jazz singer who traveled the country, wore red lipstick daily, and never apologized for taking up space. She married my grandfather when she was 35, already considered an old maid by society's standards. She had my mother at 37, which was scandalous then. Last month, Nana passed peacefully in her sleep. I was devastated, but also grateful she didn't suffer. The funeral was beautiful, packed with people whose lives she'd touched. Jazz musicians from her old touring days, neighbors she'd helped through hard times, former students from when she taught piano lessons. Patricia attended, of course. She made all the right noises, brought a casserole, hugged me at the right moments. But I caught her eye rolls when people shared stories about Nana's wild younger days. The pursed lips when someone mentioned her singing career. The subtle head shakes when they talked about her traveling alone across the country in the 1940s. After the service, I was going through Nana's things. She'd been meticulous about organization, leaving me detailed notes about what to do with everything. In her bedroom dresser, taped to the back of the bottom drawer, I found an envelope marked for Emma when I'm gone. Inside was a letter and a photograph. The photo was from 1953, Nana in a gorgeous ivory dress, standing next to a handsome man in a military uniform. They were clearly at a wedding, radiating joy. But this wasn't my grandfather. I'd never seen this man before. The letter explained everything. Before she met Grandpa Joe, Nana had been married to Lieutenant Thomas Morrison, Jake's grandfather. They'd eloped in 1953, but he was killed in Korea just 3 months later. She was pregnant but miscarried from the trauma. She never told the Morrison family about the pregnancy, just quietly returned to her maiden name and tried to rebuild her life. She'd kept it secret for 70 years because, as she wrote, Thomas's family blamed me for rushing him into marriage before his deployment. They said I was a gold-digging singer who got what I deserved when he died. I couldn't bear to give them more ammunition by telling them about the baby. I stared at that photo for hours. My Nana had been part of the Morrison family before I was even born. She'd loved Jake's grandfather, carried his child, grieved alone when they both died. And his family had been cruel to her when she was at her lowest point. This brings us to last Sunday. We were at the Morrison family house for their monthly dinner. Jake was outside with his dad working on some car project. I was in the kitchen helping serve dessert when Patricia started holding court with her sisters and daughters-in-law. I'm just saying, she was pontificating while cutting pie. Some people have no shame about their past. Emma's grandmother, rest her soul, was quite the character. All that singing and traveling, unmarried until she was practically middle-aged. Different values back then, I suppose. Her sister Margaret chimed in. Well, at least she finally settled down with someone respectable. Eventually, Patricia said with a tight smile. Though I always wondered about all those years before. A woman alone, traveling with musicians. She let the implication hang in the air. I felt my face getting hot, but I stayed quiet. Then Patricia's youngest daughter Chloe, who's always been sweet to me, said, Aunt Pat, that's not fair. She sounds like she was independent and strong. Patricia's mask slipped for just a moment. Independent is a generous word for it, honey. Let's just say your great-grandfather had some stories about the type of woman she was. A lot of men, if you know what I mean. The kitchen went quiet. Margaret looked uncomfortable. Chloe stared at her mother in shock. Then Patricia delivered the killing blow, her voice dripping with false sympathy. I mean, we can't speak ill of the dead, But let's be honest, your grandmother was a whore who died alone. Some women make choices, and then they live with the consequences. The world stopped. I was holding a plate of pie, and I thought I might drop it. Nobody said anything. They were all looking at their shoes, embarrassed by Patricia's cruelty but too conflict avoidant to call her out. I set down the plate very carefully. I looked directly at Patricia and said, "Excuse me." She realized she'd gone too far. "Oh, Emma, I didn't mean. I was just." "You were just what?" The kitchen was dead silent. You could hear Jake's laughter from outside, oblivious to what was happening. I walked to my purse and pulled out the photograph. I'd been carrying it everywhere since finding it, unable to decide what to do with this information. Now I knew. I placed it on the kitchen island right in front of Patricia. "That's my grandmother," I said quietly. "In her wedding dress, marrying Lieutenant Thomas Morrison in 1953. Your father-in-law." Patricia went white. She picked up the photo with shaking hands. "She was your grandfather's first wife," I continued, looking at Chloe, whose mouth was hanging open. "They eloped before his deployment to Korea. He was killed 3 months later. She was pregnant but miscarried from the trauma and grief." Margaret gasped. The other women crowded around to look at the photo. "So when you call her a whore," I said, my voice getting stronger, "you're talking about a woman who loved your husband's father, married him, carried his child, and then lost everything. A woman who kept his secret for 70 years because your family blamed her for his death, and called her a gold digger." Patricia was staring at the photo like it was going to burst into flames. This can't be real." "I have the marriage certificate too," I said. "And her letter explaining everything, including how Thomas's family treated her after he died." That's when Jake walked in, still laughing at something his dad had said. He took one look at our faces and the tension in the room and his smile died. "What's going on?" I handed him the photo. "Your grandmother just called my grandmother a whore. I thought you should know that my grandmother was married to your grandfather before he died in Korea." Jake looked at the photo, then at his mother, then at me. "What?" "Your great-grandfather Thomas," I explained. "He married my Nana in 1953. She was pregnant when he was killed. She miscarried and never told your family because of how they treated her afterward." Patricia finally found her voice. "Even if this is true, it doesn't change what kind of woman she was before dash." "Stop." Jake's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Mom, stop talking." But Patricia couldn't help herself. Maybe it was panic, maybe it was decades of unchecked cruelty, but she kept going. "This doesn't change anything. She still lived an inappropriate life. And frankly, the miscarriage was probably a blessing dash." Jake slammed his hand on the counter so hard the pie plates jumped. "Get out." "What?" "Get out of this kitchen. Now. Before I say something we'll both regret." Patricia looked around at her sisters, her daughters-in-law, looking for support. They were all staring at her in horror. She left. The kitchen stayed silent for a long time. Update 1. The fallout was swift and brutal. Jake confronted his father that night with the photo and Nana's letter. His dad broke down crying. He'd known about the marriage. His father had told him on his deathbed. But he'd never known about the pregnancy or how the family had treated her. "Dad always regretted not standing up to Mom and her sisters," he told Jake through tears. "He said they were vicious to that poor girl, and he was too young and grief-stricken to protect her." Word spread through the family like wildfire. The older generation was split, some horrified at Patricia's cruelty, others defensive about family secrets being aired. But the younger generation was unanimous in their disgust. Chloe posted on the family Facebook group, "I am ashamed to be related to anyone who would speak about a grieving widow that way. Aunt Emma's grandmother was family before any of us were even born, and we treated her like garbage." Patricia tried damage control. She called Jake crying, claiming she'd been taken out of context, and that grief makes people say things they don't mean. But too many people had heard her exact words. Her own daughters started calling her out. "Mom, you didn't just insult Emma's grandmother." Her eldest daughter Sarah told her during a family intervention I wasn't invited to but heard about later. "You called a war widow a whore. You said a miscarriage was a blessing. There's no context that makes that okay." The church asked Patricia to step down from the ladies' auxiliary board after other members expressed discomfort. Her volunteer work had been her entire social identity. Jake moved us out of the family house where we'd been staying while apartment hunting. We're staying with my parents now while we figure out our next move. I can't believe I defended her for so many years, he said last night. I always knew she was judgmental, but this is who she really is when she thinks no one's watching. Update 2. 3 weeks later, and the Morrison family is completely fractured. What I didn't expect was how deep this would go, or what else would surface once people started questioning Patricia's version of family history. Jake's cousin David called him last weekend. I need to tell you something about Aunt Pat, he said. My mom finally told me the truth about why she and Patricia haven't spoken in years. Turns out, when David's mother was going through her divorce, she'd come to Patricia for support. Patricia had told the church ladies that David's mom was asking for it because she wasn't submissive enough to her abusive husband. The judgment and gossip made it impossible for her to stay in their hometown. More stories started coming out. Patricia's pattern of cruelty disguised as concern, a victim blaming wrapped in religious language. The family realized that Emma's grandmother wasn't her first target, just her most recent. 2 days ago, Jake's dad filed for divorce. After 35 years of marriage, I can't pretend anymore, he told Jake. Your mother has poisoned too many relationships, hurt too many people. I've enabled it by staying silent, and I'm done. Patricia is staying with her sister Margaret, who's the only family member still speaking to her. Even her own children have gone no contact or low contact. Final update. It's been 6 months now. The Morrison family looks completely different. Jake's dad is dating someone new, a kind widow from his hiking group. He seems lighter, happier than I've ever seen him. He's also started therapy to work through decades of enabling his ex-wife's behavior. Patricia moved to another state to live with a cousin. From what we hear, she's still playing the victim, telling anyone who'll listen that her family abandoned her over one little comment, taken out of context. But the most beautiful thing that's come from this is how the family has embraced Nana's memory. They've asked me to share stories about her, to show them more photos. Jake's cousin is learning piano because she was inspired by hearing about Nana's music career. Last month, we had a memorial service for both Nana and Jake's grandfather Thomas. The family insisted on it. They wanted to honor the love story that had been buried for 70 years. His surviving war buddies came and shared stories. The Morrison family finally got to grieve properly for their lost son, and Nana finally got the recognition she deserved as his wife. I framed the wedding photo, and it sits on our mantle now. Jake says it reminds him that love is worth fighting for, even when families try to destroy it. Sometimes I wonder if I should have handled things differently, if I should have confronted Patricia privately instead of exposing her in front of everyone. But then I remember her words, a whore who died alone. And I know that some cruelty can't be addressed with quiet conversation. The Morrison family is smaller now, but it's healthier. The toxic dynamics that Patricia maintained for decades are finally broken. Jake's relationship with his remaining family members is deeper and more honest than it's ever been. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I can feel Nana's presence finally at peace, finally vindicated after 70 years of carrying that secret alone. Patricia didn't just insult my grandmother that day. She revealed exactly who she was when she thought no one would hold her accountable. I'm grateful I was there to prove her wrong.